Well. Here we are back again talking about Peter Christopher. Hello, my name is Cameron. I'm with BusybodyVisa.com and I have another video about Peter Christopher. So, apparently, another employee from Together Light Incorporated, that's his company, contacted me and stated that he had a similar experience to me, that he worked for Peter Christopher. Peter decided he was not happy with his work and terminated his employment, which is fine. But then he decided not to pay him his final wage. So we're seeing a pattern here because that's the same thing with me. I want to just come out and say straight up, that I support the at-will doctrine. If he doesn't want me or this guy or anybody working for his company anymore, he should be able to let that person go, but you have to pay them for their work. And it's extremely narcissistic and just honestly evil to screw people over because because it's an online job, remote work, that it's highly unlikely they're going to take the steps to sue you to get relief. And then he also knows that even if, for example, let's say that I were to sue him for the wages that he owed me, and I win, he would still have saved thousands of dollars from him not paying people, because this is a pattern. Remember, when it comes to law enforcement, the best predictor of future behavior is past patterns. And Peter is no stranger to the law. I did some more digging, and besides the other case I talked about in my other video, he also was convicted of stalking and harassment, and was ordered to stay away from a woman. So basically, here's what happened, and this is in Hawaii. This is the case of Kakazu versus Christopher. It's a civil matter from Hawaii where Miss Yuko Kakazu basically sought a restraining order against Peter. Let me just say that Peter's the kind of guy that he thinks he's always the smartest guy in the room. Everyone is stupid but him. So basically, what the court found is he saw this woman that he fancied on a dating site. And of course, he's a cheapskate. So he didn't want to pay the fee. So he actually, I guess, did a reverse image search or something like that and found her on Facebook. And she probably looked at him and was like, oh, no, heck no. And she didn't respond to him. Well, most guys would leave it alone at that point. But that's not what happened. Not only after she didn't respond to him, he sent a letter to her job and containing excessive personal details and assumptions about her interest in him, which really scared her. I mean, think about it. I mean, it's one thing to get someone contacting you, you ignore them, they usually go away. But see, a guy like Peter, he thinks he should get whatever he wants. He's entitled. He's an entitled little man-child. After he did that wasn't enough for him. He continued with the persistent communication. He sent a packet of 4 letters without waiting for a response to his initial communication. So he continued to send her letters. After she ignored him on Facebook, he wrote a letter to her job, and then he continued to send more letters. Oh, but it doesn't stop there. He started going to dance lessons that she frequented after a hiatus of 10 years. So he hadn't been to this dance class. I'm assuming he hadn't been to this dance class in 10 years. And but he found out that she goes there. So then all of a sudden he decided he wanted dance lessons. And so then that is what the court interpreted as intent to seek her out in person and as a pattern of harassment. So imagine this poor woman. She's ignoring him. He's not getting the hint. He sends a letter to her job, which is creepy. Then he starts sending her 4 additional letters. Then he starts going to dance lessons that she goes to. Now, I want to say that I'm normally very sympathetic to men, because there are some women that do say, oh, yes, 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 no, no, no. Or they'll initially be interested, but then once they find out that the guy doesn't have as much money as she thought he did, it becomes harassment. But that is not what happened here. This was completely unsolicited harassment. And I just want to say, what a cheapskate. He didn't even have the decency to pay for the dating site. He tried to circumvent it by doing a reverse image search and find her on Facebook. And this guy owns a dating site. And so you would think someone who owns a dating site would be more sympathetic and would at least pay for the service that he's trying to use to meet a woman. Just totally ridiculous. So she took him to court. They issued a TRO, which is a temporary restraining order, and the court made it permanent on June 7, 2017, prohibiting Christopher from contacting, threatening, and harassing her, as well as entering or visiting her residence, places of employment, and attending certain dance events that she frequented. You would think that it would stop there, but it didn't. So instead of just accepting it, that this woman doesn't like him, and he made a mistake, he went way too far. No. Peter's always right. So, and again, he thinks he's smarter than everybody. So he filed some really stupid appeals. So first he said that the order violated his constitutional rights. So apparently Peter thinks that the First Amendment allows you to harass people. No, it doesn't. The First Amendment was intended to be able to say you disagree. And by the way, the First Amendment only applies to government, state action. You can't just say what you want to anybody else and not face consequences. The First Amendment protects you from being jailed for speech. It does not protect you to harass women because you're a disgusting little cheapskate nerd who can't even pay for a dating site. So you try to contact her on Facebook. Okay, then he tried to say that it was not intentional. He said that, oh, well, I didn't mean to harass her. I just contacted her on Facebook. When she ignored me, I wrote a letter to her job. When she ignored that, I wrote 4 more letters to her. And then I started going to stalking her at dance lessons. But, I didn't mean to her. Me? No. What do you mean? And then he tried to argue insufficient evidence of harm. He claimed that there was no substantial evidence demonstrating that his actions would cause a reasonable person to suffer emotional distress, which is a necessary element for the issues of an injunction. Wow, this guy must be a hit with the ladies. It's no surprise why he couldn't find a woman there. I mean, just what a loser. He doesn't see, he really, and I believe that, he literally does not see anything wrong with what he did. In his mind, it's, he should get what he wants, and he's always right. I mean, even if a guy did that to another guy, I mean, it takes a certain level of being, sociopath to not understand how what he did would be emotionally distressing to a woman. Actually, even another man. And then, of course, he tried to do procedural errors. He alleged that the court made errors in its finding of fact and conclusions of law, and it failed to consider potential harm that the injunction would cause him. Peter is what you call a Google scholar. He probably tried to look up arguments. He represented himself because, again, he's such a cheapskate. He went to court pro se instead of paying for a lawyer to defend himself because he thinks he knows everything. And it reflects on how he treats his employees. He doesn't put them as employees and makes them as contractors, even though the law says that they should be employees. When he's not happy with them, he doesn't pay them for their final salary in order to save money. He doesn't invest in the site. If you look at the back end of the site, it looks like it's an early 2000s site. There's been no updates at all, even though he could afford to do so. That everything has a pattern, and it's just showing who this man is. And having a having a permanent injunction for him should have been enough. But he continues to break the law. And Peter's criminal history continues. In 2018, Peter Christopher was indicted by a federal grand jury in the District of Hawaii on 2 counts. One is wrongful furnishing of another's passport. Two was false statements on a passport application. So the charges stem from incidents where Peter allegedly provided a U.S. passport originally issued to one of his minor daughters to another daughter for unauthorized use. So basically, he had, I guess he lost or for some reason didn't have the passport for one daughter, so he tried to use the other daughter's passport. And then he was accused of submitting false statements in passport applications, so he lied in the application, claiming that the passport had been lost when it had not, to obtain a new one under false pretenses. Um, Passport fraud is very serious. And it's very telling that he now owns a visa agency when he's a fraudster. He commits passport fraud. That's quite ironic. So, throughout the legal process, Peter faced challenges regarding legal representation. So, he wanted a public defender, again, despite being presumably being a millionaire. But then the courts were like, wait a minute, you said that your company earns $5 million a year. Why are you using taxpayer money to represent yourself? I mean, to represent you. And not only does he own Together Light, he owns real estate. So, after a series of appeals and hearings, the court ultimately did appoint him counsel, acknowledging some partial eligibility. So, this guy is so cheap that despite being a presumptive millionaire, he wouldn't even pay a lawyer to defend himself to keep himself out of jail. I mean, that is just narcissism, sociopathy. That's ridiculous. That's outrageous. So of course he was convicted, and he again tried the same thing, filing ridiculous appeals. He tried to say that he filed a motion to vacate, set aside, or correct his sentence. He also argued that the government breached plea agreements and that his counsel provided ineffective assistance. The court did address these things, ultimately denying the motion without prejudice on certain grounds. Then, while in prison, so he went to prison for 18 months, while in prison, he was complaining that he didn't like the conditions of prison. He complained that he didn't have enough free time in the law library. He complained about the condition of his cell. So apparently Peter Christopher thinks that being in prison should be like staying in a hotel. Wow. Of course, these appeals were denied, crybaby. And he even had supervised release, and then he appealed that. He wanted the supervised release to be ended early. But the court said, no, you're lucky you're getting this supervised release. Shut up. And then finally he was released. And, but sadly, white-collar criminals, this is very common for people like, not just Peter, but almost all white-collar criminals. Unlike blue-collar or physical crime, where you fighting something like drug dealers, white-collar criminals usually they tend to think they're very intelligent because it's usually they do it a long time before they get caught. And so they think that they're above the law. They think they know everything. They think everybody is stupid but them. That's just the way white-collar crime seems to work. And most of the time, they never learn their lesson. They just try to see how they can prevent from getting caught again. And the way he's treating his employees or work contractors demonstrates the same thing. He's charging, they're claiming that they do all this work to vet the women on the dating site, but that's just not true. I mean, as I said in my last video, there's no magic machine that can peer into the souls of these women to find out if their intentions are good. And quite frankly, most of the Filipinas that join these kind of dating sites are all from the same pool of women from the lower echelons of society, single moms, basically the men that the Filipino men don't want. I'm sorry, but it's true. And they're looking for a Western guy to take care of them. They see the girl that she looks like she's a provinciana, and now all of a sudden she lives in a high-rise condo in BGC because she met the right foreigner. So that's just what it is. There's no way to screen for that, but they try to act like they have a way of screening for that. With it, I've had when I was working there, I had several people tell me that they had women on that site asking them for money, and there's hookers on that site. So it's just good marketing that people think that Christian Filipina is so much better. And the big way they do is their influencer marketing. I was told that Peter actually purchased Tim K's channel. And so actually now Tim K does what Peter says. And you can see Tim K pushing Christian Filipina a lot. You know, he didn't meet his wife on Christian Filipina. You know, he didn't spend $1,000 to meet Chrissy, but he wants YouTube. I guess he's having financial problems. But it's smart to do the influencer marketing because people listen to influencers. It's much better, much more effective to have an influencer peddle your product than to just put a straight ad. People are ad blind. People are suspicious of ads. People are not suspicious of influencers. And so that's why Christian Filipina has been able to build up their base. There's nothing special. I want you guys, if you're looking at Christian Filipina, I want you to try to be objective and just look at it and tell me honestly, comment on this video. What really is so special about Christian Filipina that you can't get on Dayton Asia, Plenty of Fish, Filipino Cupid? If you look at it honestly, there's really no difference. It's pink, maybe that's a difference, but you're just paying a whole lot more than you should. But you should know that this man has a pattern of narcissism, and this is not a good man. And I seriously doubt if someone like that is really a Christian. In Matthew, it says to know them by their fruits. Talk is cheap. It's easy to sit there and call yourself a Christian and have prayers. But in Matthew, it says, know them by their fruits. A good tree produces good fruits. A bad tree produces bad fruits. Look at what he's done. He's been convicted of stalking a woman and making her, extremely scared. He committed passport fraud, and then he doesn't pay his employees. I mean, that doesn't sound very Christian to me.